Hello, everyone out there. I'm just getting on live. My name is Jennifer Sampou, and today is the first of about 6 or 7 live chats called Maker's Chat. And what we're doing for the next 6 or 7 live Maker Chats is we're going through the Sky Ombre book. Hi everyone. So we're going to go through the Sky Ombre book, and I have invited all these different makers to come and talk about their work and how they felt using Sky, what colors were their favorites, is it different fabric than they've used before. And my special guest today is Veruschka Zarate of Pride and Joy Quilting. And I am going to get her on in a couple of minutes. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. And Veruschka she won Best of Show at the last QuiltCon for her portrait of her and her 2 children. It was just beautiful. Hello from Guatemala. Oh, that's awesome. So she is a really special guest. She's a paper piecing queen. She had this project right here in my lookbook. It's called Sorbet Sunset, and it's a wonderful beginning project. So we're going to talk to her today about the Sorbet Sunset. If you've never done paper piecing before, she's going to help you get over that kind of fear and why this is a great first project. And I am going to try and get Veruschka on right now. Oh, hi, Linda. You're working on the tote. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get Veruschka. And Veruschka, if you are live, do a request to join. And I am also going to invite you, Veruschka. Okay, and it's going to be Pride and Joy. So just bear with me, everyone. So if you see that, it's 1:32. Oh, there she is.
I had my iPad up, and I'm clicking in a phone, and I'm like, I'm looking at my iPad, and but on my phone it says live. I'm like, I'm just gonna use my phone.
I know, like just the funny thing is you get your phone on and you start like looking at, oh, what does this do? And what does that do? And you start pushing buttons, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's 1:30.
Yes. And I actually texted her, I'm ready. And then I'm like, oh no, how do I actually figure this out?
Oh, I know.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Veruschka. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for the honor.
Yeah, so I was just telling folks how you are featured in the Sky Ombre lookbook and your beautiful, beautiful and charming Sorbet Sunset. I just love it. I remember asking you, said, hey, would you want to be in the lookbook? Because you've just skyrocketed since you've won Best in Show, right? Like,
well, I didn't win Best in Show.
Famous piecer. You're the famous, paper piecer. And so now I was like, oh, well, will she come on? And you're like, yes, I'll come on.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And it's just a beautiful project because it seems simple. And,
yes.
I know some of your stuff, maybe you want to talk about how you get, one of my first questions is, how do you get from simple to complicated? And what was your advice for first timers if they've never paper pieced before?
Yeah, first your ombre line is delicious. I mean, it really aesthetically just pulls you in. So I knew I was actually talking with someone the other day, and they were like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing a circle thing. And I thought, oh, I'm terrible at circles. And they were like, really? But you paper piece so well. I'm like, I can do one thing and I can do it really well. So I knew I wanted to do a play on foundation paper piecing, but wanted to highlight the ombres, number one, wanted it to be something that someone could look at and say, I think I can execute this successfully, right? Um, because I think there's, you know, when you look at a quilt, the first thing is, do I like it or not, right?
Right.
And then there's this thing of, well, am I able to achieve that? And although some quilts are deceptively easy, I think a lot of times folks can be um, maybe don't dare to do it because they just think it's too difficult. So I knew I wanted something that would be foundation paper piece that could highlight the ombres, but that someone could look at it and say, yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can achieve that. So that was the, and then it's called Sky, right? And we're both in California, and we know
SoCal, NorCal, like up NorCal, just like we're on our Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Northern California and Southern California. You know, I felt that some of the yardage really, I mean, it really did call like sunset to me. It was like, you know, when you're on the beach and it's a yummy day and the sun is going down and it throws out these colors of orange and red and burgundy and yellow. And so I thought, well, it's sky, really, but it's the sky at sunset. So then I thought, well, how can I do something that pays homage to sky, is simple for someone to execute, and I think we did it.
Yeah, well, I like it. I don't know if you have the sample with you, but could you show us the real sample?
I do.
Oh, see, so it's what, 12 by 18. I'm trying to remember what the size is. Yeah, it's 15 by 21 and a half. I'm just looking at my piece of paper, so it's totally approachable for a first time.
Yeah, and I actually, and I think the pattern came in 2 sizes, but the reason why I like the larger one, Jennifer, is because your ombres, they really change in character inch by inch. So I think that it plays complement, I think, to the overall effect of the fabric when you're able to see larger sections of it. I mean, of course, smaller sections work as well, but when you're able to see sort of these lengthy stretches of the fabric, I think is where the real magic happens. And so the reason why this is sized this way, Jennifer, oh, sorry, Jennifer.
That's fine. You call me Jen. That's good.
So many works. Friends that are called Jennifer, we call it Jen. This is exactly, I think, a fat quarter. So like half a yard, right?
Yes.
But what's interesting about your sky, Jennifer, is that the entire yardage, it like the coloring of your fabric varies from the very tip of the selvage to the other tip. There isn't a replication happening in the middle of the yardage.
Yeah, it's not mirrored. It's not. So there's a mirrored ombre, which V&Co does those beautiful mirrored ombres, and they're much more subtle. And then mine's more like, you know, from left to right.
Yeah, so you have a lot. Yeah, you have a lot more to play off of, to consider, and so that's where the size came in. I was like, you know, you can always make something smaller or bigger, but I thought, how, you know, I want to highlight the variance within the fabric in a way that feels manageable.
Well, and the other thing maybe is that someone will make your sorbet sunset, and I'm just going to pull a sample of one of the colors you used, which is amethyst. And they can pull different parts of the amethyst, right? Like you can pull anywhere, and your piece, so that everyone who makes it, they're going to pick like a little bit different area. So it won't be like yours exactly. So everyone's will be a little unique.
Exactly. every piece ends up being its own standing, unduplicated piece, which is very interesting because another reason why I like ombres, and in particular the sky ombre, is because I think in the pattern, to make this using solids, you need about 17 pieces of fabric. Now, I'm a big solid fan, as I don't know.
Well, I know, and this is one of my questions. This is one of my questions. Okay, so 17 pieces.
Right?
Okay.
But in using ombre, I think I actually printed out I think I only used 6. So you're able to achieve. Did I use 6? Let's see. I used peony, cardinal, flame, honey, pomegranate, and amethyst. And the names are great, by the way, Jennifer.
Oh, thanks.
The names are great.
Those were fun to make. But yeah, so that's okay. So, and you're such a pro at solids. That's kind of your go-to, is the solids. So how do you teach, like, the whole thing with ombres is I'm trying to give people like color confidence by like, here, all these colors go together and they're all in one fabric. But you're also teaching, like, when you do your, like, just when you did your portrait, that is like super hot, spicy in regards to talent. Like, you've got to have all your pieces going on, right? To like really nail that. Because remember, I met you at, I bumped into you on the floor and we were laughing because you're like, oh my God, when I first did my teeth paper piece, they're all bright white. Yeah. But that's not the way our teeth really look. And you had to go with yellow and like peach or like some dirty gray color.
I went with pink for the teeth, for the lightest part, and then hyacinthia. It's a hyacinth, which is a purpley. Yes, when you're working with solids or patterned fabric, the question is frequently, well, do these colors complement each other, right? And there are tons of classes on, color coordination and what colors go together or complement each other, or, are the antagonists of each other. But one of the amazing things about ombre is that really, I love ombre because it's kind of like a little cheat, because you know that when you grab this yardage of fabric, I know that no matter where I fussy cut it, it belongs to the same color family, number one, right? Because you can pick, and this is a challenge with solids, and sometimes, most of the time I hit it, but sometimes I don't, because it looks very different on a swatch than it does when it's right in front of you with the light hits. But you're making sure it's within the same color family, right? So it's not like this yellow has a little bit of green or this one has a little bit of pink. Yeah, they kind of go together, but not really. So you make sure they're in the same color family, but two, you make sure it's within you can use a variety of value, right? Yeah. So like the amethyst, on one part of your yardage, it's the bright tones of the amethyst, but on the other sides, it's the richer, darker, dark chocolatier parts of the amethyst. And so in a way, it kind of takes the guesswork out of, will these variants of colors complement and marry into each other well? So
no, and it's it is, the reason for sky is to make color accessible to people, and make it a little bit easier. But what I also find interesting is I'm on your Etsy page right in front of me, because I've got my Instagram right in front of my monitor, and I'm looking at the pattern, which you can buy your Sunset Sorbet on your Etsy shop. And it's a PDF download for $12. I'm like looking around my phone to see my screen. But what's neat is you show a picture of it flat, and then you see a picture of the finished piece. Mm-hmm. So I think if I could share with that people right now, it's really cool to look at. If someone likes a more painterly look, ombres are a great thing to paper piece with. If someone likes more of a flat, modern look, the solids 17 solids versus, what did we say, five of, or six of the ombres.
Yeah.
So that's where people get to play and do what they want.
Yeah, the ombres definitely create more visual interest and depth, whereas solids give a different effect. And one of the reasons why I use solids, it's not, I mean, if it's really to create continuity of shape, right? So because I'm using straight lines to create curving, if you will,
right.
I need, if I had patterned fabric, then it creates very clear delineations between the shapes. So really it's kind of a cheat on my part to give the impression that there are complex shapes that are one piece, but in fact they're made up of several. But no doubt in my mind, I mean, fabrics that are that have complexity of color like sky give a aesthetically will give your subject a richer impact. I mean, it's really almost like you're looking into a painting. Because I think it's based off of like paint, right? I mean, you actually paint it.
I created it with pastels. Each piece is painted with pastel. But I do want to talk a little bit more about you so you can share with people. I see you've launched a bunch of new classes. You now have kits. You are the queen of reels. Oh my God, your reels are hilarious. I like the one where you were drinking something on the couch upside down. You're like, obviously procrastinating. You're like, this is how you write patterns.
Well, you have 3 boys, right? But they're grown now, right, Jennifer?
My youngest is graduating next week. Yes.
Oh, I have 2 little ones at 7 and 8 years old, which was funny because we had to change our our time because childcare.
Yeah.
So I never expected or anticipated taking something that was really a respite for me, where, professionally I was in counseling psychology, worked at UC Riverside here where I live. I never thought that a hobby would take sort of this trajectory, right? And there have been ups and downs. I'm learning as I go. But the challenge for me is you're a solopreneur. I don't even know if that's a word.
Yes. You know what? I've never heard that, but solopreneur, that's a good one.
It's a solopreneur where I'm having to do the kits. I'm having to, come up with the idea. And I'm saying that not as complaining, but it's challenging to have all the plates spinning at the same time. Yeah. So this year, and then challenging that with having little ones, right? Yeah. And I think for mothers, I'll just speak for myself, but my motherhood, if you will, it's a constant struggle, right? When I'm with them, I'm like, there's so much work I have to do. Yeah. When I'm doing work, I'm like, I should be with the kids. So all that to say that it has been an almost vertical causing experience that is thrilling in many ways. I have learned I deep end experience, being thrown in the deep end from even making, because it's one thing, as you know, to make something that you make, right? Right. Like I saw your beautiful Georgia O'Keeffe, which she's amazing, work. But you're doing it for yourself, right? And it's a whole other thing when you try to translate it for others to make, and you try to bring some income into the home. So it has been a wonderful experience, and I'm enjoying the ride as challenging as it is, right? I have my studio space is a mess because I'm in the middle of this massive project, but I have a quilt guild tonight in your neighborhood, near Sonoma County, Modern Quilt Guild. So I have to clean this. I'm like, Daddy, take the boys to the park. Yeah. So it is a wonderful, and I feel very honored to when you do something that other people resonate with and want to be a part of. And so, yeah, it has been it is a thrilling experience. And then to have conversations with, others who have been on this journey a lot longer than I have, and be like, well, how do you do this? And how do you do it well? And so even though it feels like a solopreneur at home,
Right.
relationships matter, and connecting with others. And some people are very, wanting to help, like, yeah, Veruschka, this is how I do this. And I'm like, oh, good, right? Others are a little more guarded, and that's all fine. But it's been wonderful getting to know people in the quilting community that have been in it longer.
Yeah.
I've only been doing this really for about a year and a half. And every step feels monumental, Jennifer. Like,
Yeah.
when you put out your first pattern, right? And then when I was thinking, well, should I do kits, and risking, the financial investment of buying the fabric and buying all the things, and then will people purchase, right? And it's all a very thrilling, honored experience to be doing something that I love, which is quilting and patterns and designs, and then sharing that with the world. It's amazing.
Well, you definitely are shooting up in a rocket, and you're doing a beautiful job. And just, pace yourself. Make sure you take long hot baths, and you have your tea and your cake. I love your tea. And you don't have to, video the tea and the cake.
Usually those kinds of content is because I don't want to share anything else. I'm like, I could just pour the tea.
Yeah, and it's super cute. You're doing it. You're just killing it. I think you're inspiring a lot of people to try paper piecing. I did notice. Do you know we're here together?
Yes, in the same week.
The same week, we're going to be taking walks on the beach together, girlfriend. We've got right here. We've got, I'm teaching a master color class, and you're teaching mastering paper piecing.
Yes.
May 5 through 10.
Next year.
2023 at Asilomar, empty spools.
Yes.
Whole week.
It's
going to be
beautiful.
And
I was actually thinking, now that you held it up, that, if there's anyone listening, your skies would be, your ombre skies would be a perfect fit for the lion. Because of the one of the things that I well, of course, I always have a solids part in the pattern.
Right.
And I tend to use V & Co Ombre only because it resembles a solid. So when I have a lot of solids that I need, but sky would be perfect actually for, and I'm just thinking out loud, for creating a lion that is very much sort of this painting experience. So maybe we should talk, or if there's anyone who's going to empty schools.
Well, Colette can just send. Do you have any fabric left that we sent you?
No.
Okay, no. Colette, we'll just send you some. We'll send you new bundles so you can play with them.
Awesome.
Because we can do that.
Yeah. And anyone who's participating, they could kind of like go between, Jennifer and my class and be like, well, how could you, create the variance of color using the fabric? I mean, it could totally work.
Well, yeah, and it's fun to combine the ombres with the solids, with prints. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. A lot of fun things.
There are.
And I think that the precision piecing, you're guaranteed these beautiful results. Do you use, what do you use for your foundation paper? Do you use a certain brand? Do you use like Carol Jokes or something?
I know there's like like specialty paper. I use plain old Costco 20-pound recycled lightweight paper. I mean, I think specialty paper when at a macro level is the best. I mean, because it's made for that, right? And it tends to be easy to tear, and it's you can kind of see through. I think the whole vellum type of is brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So there, specialty paper is fantastic. I mean, it's really like the gold standard. I do so much of it that, and I've gotten used, and I have like these reams of paper that I'm like, I might as well use. So maybe when I finish using those reams, but I just use plain old recycled cheap paper, because at the end of the day, I'm just tearing it out.
Right.
But if folks want to invest in paper that is specialty made, that will facilitate their process and help them feel a sense of mastery and confidence, then invest in that. Then it's worth it for that.
Yeah. So I pinned up my only paper pieced latest pattern. This is paper pieced this part, right? As you can see. But then I wuss out.
Applique.
Yeah, and then I applicate on top, because I'm like, okay, that's about as much paper piecing as I can do. And then I cut around, and then I zigzag it and applique it. So that's the extent of my, and I did the elephant and I that way. I've never done a full on everything paper piece, because I don't know. I think I'm just like, I just get overwhelmed, because it's very particular. Like I would just probably lose half of my pieces. I don't know.
Yeah, the pros about foundation paper piecing is that it really gives you the ability to do very detailed, precise sewing and create subjects that I think, other than applique, because with applique you can make almost virtually anything, which I understand now why art quilters, like real art quilters, use applique, because you just cut out the piece, and if it doesn't work, well, you recut it, right? Right. The challenge with foundation paper piecing is that there's little room for improvisation, because it's very much a puzzle.
It's a puzzle.
And so yeah. I mean, quilting is a puzzle in general, but in particular, foundation paper piecing is. So a lot of this, the planning has to happen even before you get to sewing. And so one of the disadvantages is there's limited improvisation. I mean, whereas, with applique, you can kind of, or just sewing, there's some improvisational artists out there that just blow my mind. My mind doesn't think like that, because FPP, exactly like you were saying, Jennifer, it takes a lot of strategy. I'm very type A. So I'm like, I want to know the rules. And if I'm breaking them, tell me, and FTP is that, it's very, these are the pieces that go together like this. I do all of the brainstorming beforehand.
That must be like, it must be a tremendous endeavor to write the patterns, especially for the more complicated pieces.
It is. So I'm working on this one piece now, and it's the largest and most detailed piece that I've created a pattern for.
Wow.
And the challenge is writing the instructions, because as we want to make sure that when someone takes our idea, they feel the confidence and the direction that they need to be able to execute it successfully. And so writing the instructions, and it's a lot of little details, right? Are the colors right? Is the sequencing right? Does the puzzle work? Does the color work?
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why I use solids in my pattern, only because if you're in Germany or Australia or like Singapore, you can find some version of purple, right? You can find some version of green.
Yeah.
And
so it's translatable.
Yeah, it's translatable. And but it doesn't have the richness aesthetically as like, a painted fabric. I mean, that's the limit of it.
Yeah.
But funny enough, you were mentioning your whale behind you, which is paper piecing on applique on top, which this is the opposite. So I foundation paper piece this, but applique the sun.
So talk about the construction of this. This is a great beginner project because it's just straight sewing, right? Strips and long
it's
strips.
Just straight sewing. And really, I mean, basically you foundation paper piece up to here, right? Yeah. Then you use the template to make the circle. And what I actually ended up doing, because these colors are so rich in color, I ended up using 2 layers of stabilizer to create a white, right? Because then
Right.
you would see the pinks and the rich purples. So you need some sort of stabilizer to make it a really thick white. So then I sewed up to here. I stopped. I used the template, made the circle, appliqued it onto there, because I could have done the foundation paper piecing of like, you know, but I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
but
want to break up the sunshine.
right.
And
Right.
then
No,
once I
I
applique
love that you
that,
appliqued it. Did you hand sew that? Did you hand stitch it down after? Like, did you wedge it in? No.
no. So you foundation paper piece up to here.
Okay.
You applique that on,
Okay.
and then you keep foundation paper piecing on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
this
That's,
actually was a full circle before I
you
sewed
just,
this one right on top.
okay.
And then you
Okay.
trim it off, and then you keep sewing. And it's only 3 more pieces that you end up sewing on the bottom.
Right. Right.
So that's why I appliqued the sun, because I didn't want the shape compromised or
Well,
broken up, you know?
It's also nice mixing up your techniques. It's nice to make the techniques a little bit. And did you just machine applique it? You just machine?
I did.
Yeah.
I just machined applique it, but a better quilter would probably hand.
You're good with your machine. And I did want to show you that we loved your little piece so much that the image is put on the back of this Aurifil box.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, so Colette just sent you a box as a thank you in the mail.
Oh.
And so you'll get these little colors. And yeah, it's I've got your information on the back, and it was just such a pretty little piece. It was such a pretty little piece in Aurifil. Have you done threads for Aurifil? Like,
I have not.
Threads? Okay. They would love to have you, I'm sure. You know, pick a collection of Aurifil threads for them.
Oh, that would be great.
That'd be really nice. That'd be really nice.
That would be great.
So I know that we've gone for a half hour already. I'm trying to think. Let's see. Do I have any more questions? Let's see. Okay, what's, in your opinion, this came from a question today. I had put it out on my Instagram, and one of the questions that came up was, what's the hardest part about learning foundation paper piecing? Like, what's the first hurdle you think you need to get over or understand for beginners out there?
That is such a great question. When I started foundation paper piecing, I had learned traditional piecing first. And I was really glad that I did, because traditional piecing teaches you almost methodical, right? Like, you need to have accuracy. You need to have, understand how to cut accurately, how to sew accurately. You know, some people use a scant quarter, some people don't. As long as you're consistent, right? Like, as long as you're consistently scant or consistently on or too short, just do the same. Because in the beginning, my blocks were either a 1/4 of an inch too large or a 1/4 of an inch too short, right?
Right.
When I happened on foundation paper piecing, and that's exactly what happened. I happened on it. I downloaded a pattern. I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was traditionally pieced. I approached foundation paper piecing through the lenses of traditional piecing. So with traditional quilting, you typically have these compartmentalized experiences, right? Where you typically cut all your fabric, you sew it all, and then you iron. About that, not always. With FPP, it's very different. You're doing each of those steps in each fabric shape.
Every time.
It's kind of like Italian food or Mexican food, in that you have the same ingredients, but they're mixed up differently, right? The ratio to sauce to pasta is a lot less, you know, or like taco meat to, like, it's the same ingredients, but the way it's structured is differently. And my challenge in the beginning, because there wasn't that many resources, I think even 3 or 4 years ago on foundation paper piecing online.
It's really gotten popular. Yeah.
It's really gotten popular. And I don't know, Jennifer, if it's kind of like when you're buying a car and all of a sudden you see that car in the freeway everywhere, right?
Yep.
I don't know if that's what's happening with foundation paper piecing, where it's like I'm honed in. But I just started without any kind of guidance, and I approached it through the lenses of traditional piecing, and so I got confused. And so one of the challenges with FPP is it's to think it's the same ingredients but just formatted differently is the first. Look at it from a different perspective. And I think a lot of people, because you're sewing the same wrong sides together, it's just you have a piece of paper on top.
Right.
Right.
And
I
instead of
think
having a traditional block, you might have some wonky wedge.
Irregular shapes. Yeah. And I think where a lot of folks get frustrated is they lose their sense of orientation.
Yeah.
Like, where do I sew? Right. Like, how do I? So this is actually a very good pattern to start, because there's no wonky shapes really. It's just true straight line sewing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Which if you think about it, you could probably improv that whole thing, except FPP takes the guesswork out of where to sew.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if people would want to improv, because you've got these beautiful skinny pieces, and your angles are so artful and well thought out. So yes, you can improv it, but to learn paper piecing, start with something like this. And you can get this pattern on her Etsy shop. You go to prideandjoyquilting.com. And I know there's a Pride and Joy Etsy shop, because I looked up you both ways.
I need to add it to my website.
That's okay. Just go to her Etsy shop. And I did
now, Jennifer, I don't know if you know this, but Keepsake Quilting is doing bundles of sorbet sunset with your sky ombres.
Well, so am I.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, that's good. Keepsake Quilting's a lot bigger than us. You know, we're two people. We are two people. But yeah, we have the sorbet sunset, and
perfect.
And we have them in the shop. We just, we cut up maybe a dozen at the most. And just because when we were having this talk, I'm like, oh, Colette, you got to cut something up, because people are going to want to make this. But Keepsake Quilting, now I'm going to have to go check what they're charging.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they are bundling your fabric and my pattern. We're still working out the printing stuff, but you can find this pattern and the bundle at Jennifer's website and at Keepsake Quilting. It's a great one to start. Like, if people feel intimidated about both applique, I mean, it's only a circle, right? And foundation paper piecing, it's really bringing those two worlds together in a way that feels palpable, palatable to folks.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Veruschka.
Thank you,
it's
Jennifer.
Such a pleasure. You're such a bright spirit. You're such a positive influence, and you're so incredibly talented in every aspect of solopreneurs.
You're so kind.
Solopreneurs. Yeah, and if you ever need to just call me, the whole boy thing, starting out new. I've been in the business for 30 years. Like I've been everywhere and back.
Oh man.
So it's not always easy, and it's not always great, and there's a lot of hardships that you go through, so you can always call me.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, and everything feels like a risk, right? Because you're putting yourself out there to grow. And I think I would end with saying this, that every time, I'll speak from my experience where I'm at, and you've for sure been there. Anytime you start something new, it feels scary.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the end result will be, right? And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
And I think anytime you start something new, you are bound to make mistakes. You're bound to learn along the way. And that can be for growing a business, which I'm definitely experiencing. But it can also be a new skill, right?
Yeah.
When you're learning it, if you've always traditionally pieced and you want to try foundation paper piecing, like, you have to expect I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I'm
That's
sitting
part.
at my
That's
sewing machine. I'm starting a new skill. I will be prepared to make mistakes. And
well,
that's what adds to the flavor of learning. There's this incredible phrase in Spanish that says, echarle sabor, right? The flavor
flavor.
of our learning and our quilting is very much embedded in our journey and progression of learning.
Yeah.
And so, you know, prepare ourselves to make mistakes as we learn a new skill, whether that's in business or in quilting. But thank you for your kind words. You're so kind, and I appreciate the honor of testing your fabric and being a part of your lookbook. And I was very excited and nervous because I didn't want to.
Well, it's a joy to speak to you. Thank you for taking the time, and keep in touch with me.
I sure will. Thank you,
Okay.
Jennifer.
Thanks everyone for coming by. Bye, Veruschka.
Bye.
Give those kids a hug.
I will. Got to go pick them up from the park now.
Okay. Bye-bye.